happening here? What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I got to beware. Think it's time to stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. Think it's time to stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and they're carrying signs. Most of them say hooray for our side. Think it's time to stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep. Into your life it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. Now it's time to stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. It's time to stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. These words were sung in the 60s by Buffalo Springfield. And 50 years later, we're still being spoken to by those lyrics, almost more than ever, really. So we want to really stop and look what's going down from a deeper perspective than we ever have before. All of these problems that we can see are going down all around us. Could they all have the same cause? Let's go into that together today. We'll be back in a second. Thank you for joining us. Today we're in SAITH Studios here in Sedona. I'm very blessed to have my father, Ashok Gangadine, with me today in person. We're gonna just go for it. Really the theme of today is understanding the depth of the matrix effect on our lives in every aspect, from the personal to interpersonal to cultural to international, global, on every scale. All of the different forms of pathologies and breakdowns and all versions of discoherence have a deep cause. We have been saying this the whole time. And in the context of the American drama that's unfolding, we want to really show that in the American society, what we're going through right now, and in the holy experiment as it unfolds and the drama intensifies, if we can all take equal responsibility for our role, our officership really, as American citizens, and stop scapegoating on our leaders, so to speak, on our representatives and on our president, and put so much on that, while we in our own lives could be participating in the discoherence and the breakdown. And the reason that's good news is because we can actually, when we realize this, we can actually affect change way more than we ever thought before. And so this episode is going to really address the powerlessness that a lot of us feel in our lives and in our country and as citizens, and to really, as a net result, empower us by seeing we want to come up with new terms. We're wanting to give you and empower you with new terms like ontological medicine. I want my father to sort of break that down for you. But we want to give you a sense of empowerment by understanding from a deeper perspective what's going down, for what it's worth. So Dad, I hand it to you.
Thank you, Nathan. Delighted to be with you. Welcome back, friends. And Nathan, that was beautifully set up. You worded it so powerfully because you're speaking from the source. From this voice, from this technology. This is our 5th episode, and we've helped our friends joining us to become oriented to this hologram that we're suggesting over 2,500 years of global human evolution across the planet. All our great wisdom teachings and enlightenment teachings and technologies to become awakened human beings, and the rational light of reason. All of that, that's our background so far. But what you just said is so amazing. That has not been seen in this space, this technology. This is a new technology. The blue lines represent a moving out of being embedded within this space, within the technology we haven't yet called out. The red lines, as we've said over and over. And you can't see that while you're in here. You've got to step back and zoom out. That's a major evolutionary upgrade of the human reason, to become self-critical of the matrix or the mind operating system or technology that shapes our lives, shapes our worlds, shapes our cultures, our religions, our arts and sciences, our education, our politics. Is all going on within this space behind this. We're suggesting this is, insofar as we're embedded here, we're colonized. Mental colonization of the mind power and word power and language power and reason power, and to step out into the global space, the rational space. So the logosphere, logosophia, using the Greek word for logos, the light of reason, being, or whatever name you use for the infinite. And this is very important, the infinite sign, as we've seen. So I would like to accentuate what you're calling out for this episode is the matrix effect. That we have not seen this, and therefore we couldn't see the effects on our lives of being in this technology. And once you begin to see, what does that do? It cuts us off from a deeper access to unity, unum pluribus. And if we're cut off from unity, it's really a human tragic, and it's a disaster. Because the fallout medically, in terms of the medicine of the source science, which we can now see, the ontological condition, and you said the word ontology, right? All across the planet are great teachers, from Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, all the way to the yoga and the Buddha and the Lao Tzu and the biblical, the Moses and the Jesus and the Mohammed are all trying to get the deeper chord to honor first. First is first. And we've been trying to find the first here. And it's stymied, it's blocked. And it's a violation of crossing over to the first land, to what is really first. And that's been blocked. And you can't just see it here. So if we say God here, Allah, Yahweh, yoga, Brahman, science, the unified field of physics, whatever we're doing, quantum, whatever name we use here, 1776, democracy, the holy experiment, whatever names we use in this language, it's still not going into the source. So what's new in this hologram, the holygram, is that you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be religious in this sense in order to say that being, reality, the field of reality, is boundless. And this is the boundless field. The infinite field is boundless. It's not finite. It's transfinite. So it's infinite. And when you begin to look at the science across the planet, It's seen that there can't be two infinites. Here I can have many names for infinites. Allah, Brahman, Yahweh, all of these names for the infinite. We can have different, but that's incoherent because the infinite is infinitely one. If you have more than one infinite, they cancel each other. So the infinite.
And just a visual side note, if you don't mind.
This
You can't do this.
That's right.
Because
Explain that.
It's this. The double brackets is not a. I want to give you a sense as we do these episodes. You're going to get a deeper and deeper sense. I want you to not see this as just symbols and technical symbols per se, but it's actually a technology. And the more you start to get the feeling of this place versus the feeling of what we're used to, keep in mind, before this, we can only really see and feel here. What this actually does is enables us to kind of pop out of this matrix, as we've been calling it, which is generating all of the discoherence and breakdowns. But I just wanted to point out, I didn't want to take a big tangent
please,
right
this is
now.
helping. You're the.
Yeah, but I just wanted to kind of just do this little visual here. That's what I do for my clients sometimes, to show them, look, it's not like
You're one-upping the infinite.
this is the point, is that you can't be outside of the double brackets are infinite. Just imagine that this is showing the sort of the ever-present embrace from the tiniest, from the micro to the macro and beyond in both directions. So I just wanted to enhance the double bracket.
That's brilliant, because that's not small.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're living in here or even here and you say, I want to go beyond I want my own space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go outside. That's the Adam and Eve fault.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because if you could pull that off, if any person or group could pull off outside of the infinite field,
Mm-hmm.
they have othered the infinite and made it finite.
Mm-hmm.
You can't other the infinite. And the infinite can't other itself from the outside. There is no, and therefore it's infinitely one. This is a huge point.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you start to see science here in this lens, this is a technology, as you point out. It's not just a sign. If you're seeing it as a sign, then you're putting it down. You're taking, okay, as always, when the teachers here speak from this language and technology, we own it here. Because this is how we understand. We translate it and download it and reduce it and make it smaller into our space, where we on our terms.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one of the things my clients say oftentimes is like, we hit that point because when we're doing this, we're actually, imagine it's kind of like it's requiring your mind to get out of its familiar kind of cozy space. And what happens with my clients is they say, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. And I say, exactly the problem.
You're wrapping your head.
That's a confession of this single bracket to give you a sense of the feeling of that. We always want, it's almost a power trip. We want to put everything in a package. We want to box it. We want to contain it. We want to compartmentalize it. And that's what leads to the fragmentation.
Is compartmental. The mental is
yes.
comparted, and parted. And that's really what you're pointing out. That if we can't see the matrix, the code, the grammar, the logic that's running our minds, the mental problem, that's what this is. And this is the Christ voice. This is the Buddha voice. This is the Logos space. The Logos in the flesh. This is huge. Because if Christ is speaking the word, the code in the flesh, the word in the flesh, the Logos in the flesh, right? And we're downsizing it here and saying, my Jesus, my Christ, for example. Or Moses is at the burning bush. The burning bush is here. It's in the presence of the infinite. Mm-hmm. The self here is in the presence of the infinite. It's holy ground. Mm-hmm. And Moses was rightly anxious. How do I tell the people, who should I say sent me? How do I go and take these laws, right, across this line back to my people, right? Or Yahweh here saying to Israel, place me first, love me, to love me, honor first. It's a basic scientific law. Mm-hmm. First should be honored as first.
And then 1776 as another.
Well, that's the point. Because what we're leading up to is when you realize, OMG, this is the source of all. Nothing can step outside. Mm-hmm. I can't have my idea and my narrative outside of the infinite. So if the infinite is infinitely one, then that's the unum pluribus. This is huge. This came out in the first 4 episodes. Unum, double bracket unum, is infinite unity. Which means what? It has infinite pluribus. That means what? Every point here is connected with every point else. Every word here is connected with every word.
Pluribus is like another word for diversity, mind you.
Multiplicity.
Multiplicity, diversity, infinite diversity, infinite.
This is huge. That word infinite diversity, right, means that this is sacred ground. So every point, let's bring this back in. Mm-hmm. Every point here, any point here, is going to have the infinite within. You can't break the infinite. Mm-hmm. right? So it's always going to be the word fractal.
I was just going to say fractal.
Right,
Yeah.
you could say fractal here, but
Yeah.
real fractal is that every point is touching. That means I here, if I could pull that off and be awakened in my awakened self, not cut off, but how about me? So when a great spiritual tradition is saying there's God, there's an infinite in every person, inscribed by the source with unalienable rights. So there's a 1776 here in the source science. It's the main point I want to start with. Now, we're not just, here comes another, opinions are here, right? Your stories, narratives, that are controlled by the lens. Whatever lens you have a narrative, and that's your story, and that's your art, and that's your truth, and that's your meaning. It could be science, it could be your Christian faith, or Catholic, Protestant, your Muslim faith, allies first. So whether it's
or
science,
atheism,
atheism, nihilism, whatever your story, it's going to be here. And that means you're under the sway of the hidden matrix. You do this well, and then you bring it out to see it. What we're doing now is in this hologram, calling it out. And once you see it, you see, wow, all of my life here is dominated and colonized and ruled by this hidden implanted matrix logic stage of development over eons of development to get to information space. Google space. It's been 2,500 years.
Yeah.
They didn't need computers to have Google information.
This is very important. We often think that computers, the invention of computers, is what led to the information age. No, think of computers as almost like the
amplifier.
Exactly. The almost the embodiment of a consciousness, a mentation,
Good.
like the word mentation that's been here for a long time. This is down here, but beginning of language and words and symbol and all of the way that developed and became more and more sophisticated over the years, over the millennia. God knows how long, to come to a place where even 2,500 years ago, to pick a time, a hot spot in history when we've had the teachings of Jesus or
recorded
Buddha or
history,
Socrates, even then it was old. The information computer age was old then, and we're talking about computer age.
But the computer matrix,
consciousness,
matrix is still working on the same logic.
Yeah.
And so we're not putting down information, we're honoring it, right? But if information here, facts, my story, and we have different stories. I have a scientific story, I got scientific facts. I have a religious story, I have a religious world. Or when you have an ecumenical civic space, I got a civic American world. Whatever your lens is, you're going to have a different story in this space. So the point that you opened up beautifully is we need to focus more deeply now. Let's take our time, just breathe and look and see what's never been seen before. That this hidden matrix now called out in the light of the source science, and it's not just another opinion, it's not another ideology. Ideologies and opinions are here. It is deep science, and it's a collective genius of the planet.
Guys, that's why we started with that song. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What we want to do today is exactly this. Just everybody stop for a second. Stop the noise, the clutter, we're go, activism, all these even good efforts that we want to do. Stop. Just to let this moment with us, be with us on this, on pause of all pause buttons. Boom. Let's step back from the whole enchilada and look at this with deep breath and woke vision. That's why this is we're not just talking about it today. We are performing it and inviting you to perform it with us. Come step back into the ultimate pause.
Good. It's all our birthright.
Yeah.
That's our great teacher says. Everyone is a logos sapien, not a Lego. Because when I say the word Lego here, like a separate piece, this matrix puts everything into pieces. It creates pieces. Every word, I, not I, right? Mind and body, right? Space and time. Color, figure, texture, motion. Every word gets its own little...
Church and state.
Church
Republican,
and state,
Democrat.
Or three branches of government, right? Whatever it is. You may be bipartisan here, but polarity here, split here, cannot be bipartisan. Dialogue. This is the holy space of dialogue. A higher rational power, word power, mind power. Being, we tap being here. So that if you think of our great teachers and scriptures are speaking here, to the people and calling us urging. That's what this arrow means. It means that we must each find our way to make a crossing from my life here inscribed here behind this wall, colonized to a free-range human in the open space of the unum. That word unum then is all important. The unum pluribus, law. That is the law of the land. That is the golden rule. That's where I and thou connect. That's where ethics and law and reason, if you want to be the land of the law, and no one is above the law. Here, if the laws are mind-made and man-made and convention-made and voted upon and inscribed by us, it's not this law. Or if 1776 is here, behold these truths to be self-evident and endowed by the source with unalienable ontological rights. So the word ontology is being. And therefore, if you're cut off from your being, you're going to have ontological illness.
I'm just going to write ontos for you.
Good.
This is a good word.
From the Greek, it means being. Ontology is the science of being.
Ontos logos is ontology.
And so the journey, the evolutionary journey of humanity across the planet has been to tap this door, find this space. Because why? The infinite force is the greatest force in the universe. It is the universe. It's calling us. It's always, this is the point. This arrow here is very important. It means we couldn't be without that. We couldn't speak. We couldn't think. We couldn't deny. We couldn't affirm. There's nothing we can do without the source. So we're being sourced, and yet we're cut off, and we're therefore desourced here. And that's the new medical diagnostic of human pathologies in all their variety. And now that I'd like to focus on that. So when you hear in our culture, even though we're great people, even though we've had great noble breakthroughs and advances, in quotes, here, right, over 250 years in the American lab, for example, this is across the planet, and we can almost change the story, and we got higher and lower, and we have all of that right here. But we know there's sexism. We know there's racism. We know there's homophobia. We know there's ethnic cleansing. We know that there's genocide. We know that kids are suffering with opioids and addictions and depression and nihilism and loss of faith and disenchanted and life crises and meltdowns of people, breakdown of love, breakdown of human relationships, divorces, chaos in the workplace because we can't see and respect each other, objectification of one another, slashing the other. What's going on?
And what do they all have in common?
You say it.
Oh, I was hoping you'd say no, that's so huge, because again, what we're wanting to really give you guys a feeling of, this should give you an incredible sense of hope. Because if we go down that list that you just so beautifully...
I'm just starting the list.
Just scratch the surface on. I mean, that's just the surface of all the problems. We can go, oh my God, how do I... you can't even think about it. You got to just tune it out, just try to live your life. And, the only thing we can do is to cope with the objectively dysfunctional and depressing state of affairs right now.
It's ontological depression,
and we normalize it, guys. So the way that we handle it now, and if you can zoom out with us and look at entertainment, look at the advertisements on TV or anywhere for that matter. Look at what we try to do to tune out. I don't want to face it. I don't want to face it. And we got to numb out and distract ourselves, and our whole culture is largely based on trying to normalize. Look at the medication commercials and all of the things that it's just a dead giveaway. If you zoom out and don't normalize it and zoom out and look, oh my gosh, we are really, really in a bad way. And almost the worst thing about it is normalizing it. So if we don't normalize it, which is what we're asking you to do with us today, denormalize it. Let's be brave.
Call this out.
This will give you the most hope you've ever felt in your life, if you can hear what we're saying, is to show what did all of those things that you pointed out have in common. And they do all have the same thing in common. And one of the things
Let's
I wanted
ask our friends.
You want to give it a swing.
What is sexism, racism, suicide, opioids, fear of death? Right, anxiety of death.
Anxiety, in general.
Depression, midlife crises, right? Culture wars.
All forms of addiction.
Religious wars, ideological collision, breakdown of civic discourse, where we're not civil to each other anymore in our political space, right? So wherever you
turn. Corruption,
but this is a source of corruption. Say why not then? Why is this a source of why is this corrupt?
Back to the previous question, what do they all have in common? is the mentation. When you said at the very beginning, we're what did you say, embedded, entrenched in a...
And captured, yeah.
And captured in a code of consciousness. That's what it all has in common. Every aspect of our lives, every iota of our experience, our lived, raw experience of life has something all in common, and that's what code is governing the perceiver's experience. The experience is a function of the code in which we are perceiving and also making decisions. I see this problem. We use a code to perceive the problem, to come up with the solution for the problem,
to diagnose it,
to communicate, to all of the things. It all is laboring under a code that is not, guys, hear me, is not being called out. The red zone, the matrix, to call it the matrix, but the single bracket space, however you want to say it, the desourced space, the plagiarist space of being without honoring being.
Okay, you said it, yeah.
That is what this all has in common, and it's leading to, this is not conceptual, oh, isn't that nice to know up here, but anyways, life, no guys, this is on us, the ultimate monkey on the back, monkey on the mind, monkey on the being.
Monkey mind.
Yes, that's got us disabled to be the true human beings that the forefathers, for example, not to mention
not God,
Jesus, Buddha, takes the source,
being,
has been calling us to see the bigger drama here of the human evolutionary process, has been calling us from these early stages of development where you could almost see this as amazing breakthrough on the way.
There you go.
But we got stuck.
Yeah.
We got stuck in a code that we didn't know we were using, almost like we got addicted to it, and it got addicted to us.
And was using us.
And using us, yeah.
Why did we get stuck, Nath?
Because it was so good.
Why is it so good?
Because you can talk about anything.
That's right. Yeah, and you can make all the changes.
Yeah,
you can have higher and lower and better. You can change your story, change your world, change your paradigm, change your lens here. You could do a lot of stuff. You could have battle. There's no limit to how much you can do that. You can make changes. And people are obsessed with change. I want transformation. I want change. We could do better. This is not us. And we're diagnosed. We know things are wrong here. And we're going to have a creative activism, or a life coaches are saying, you've got to have the power of now, right? You've got to put love first, right? You've got to see that we
choose love over fear.
Love over fear. Love versus fear. I mean, that's what this line means. You could always other. But what you're pointing out is that if you're slashing the source without knowing it, naively, and you're colonized by a matrix that's using you, and this is not the land of the free, of the culture of free beings here. And it's our birthright for all humans who are born of the source. We say we're children of God as a metaphor. We're children of being, right? We're logos sapiens, we're onto sapiens. Not homo sapiens, but holo sapiens, holistic beings. And our being is well-being, our ontological well-being in the medical ontology. So the source science allows us to see a whole new depth of understanding pathologies and illnesses, ontological disorders. Not only psychological, not only physical, not only biological, not only medical in that sense, but in this medicine, if you're cut off from your being and from yourself, it's going to hurt, right? And our great traditions and scriptures had their own way of putting that. The wage of sin is death. Death here is terminal life. Time here is squelched. Space here is impeded.
Everything
Space
is
here
squelched,
is open.
Yeah.
Space is connected with time, and time is connected with word, and word is connected with mind, and mind is connected with world, and the whole ecology is so beautifully integrated in this infinite unum place. But when that gets broken, the links that are here, the healthy links gets broken. And now we're in Legoland.
We don't even know that we're chopping ourselves from each other, from our environment, from one moment to the next, from one aspect of life to the other. There's a compartmentalization that is a fragmentation. And that's why we often refer to this as Legoland, right? It's like just like Legos.
Lego units, yeah.
Yeah, you can connect them, you can click them together, but they're inherently breakable. And so if you realize that your entire life, our entire worlds are based on this kind of Lego technology, we've pieced together worlds that are, it's inherently a house of cards. Any worldview or ideology or perspective or religion or non-religion, anything you construct with the Lego way of thinking.
Including our medicine and all of your life coaching and activity, all of that. Let's make a better world.
And it's not to deny the breakthroughs, because one of our concerns we often talk about is we don't want anyone to feel like we're putting down the amazing breakthroughs and heartfelt attempts to make the world a better place. But what we're suggesting is we can be way beyond where we've been. It's like we've had the really good intention to get to a better place, but we didn't know we were hitting an invisible wall and barrier. So we've been working against ourselves, and that's what we really want to break out of with this journey that we're taking you on, to get us all to see, wow, could we have been wanting the right thing, but lo and behold, defaulting into the same dead-end way of trying to get better, which is that's what's scary, is to stay in that space and to exhaust ourselves, if you will, to even our best efforts and most heartfelt attempts at improvement on any level. It could just be to improve your health, your relationship, or to do something for the whole environment of the planet. Or the democracy, and your intention is beautiful. Medicine to cure cancer, and people who devote their lives to these things to make the world a better place and save lives and all this stuff. We really want to be clear. We're not diminishing that at all. We're wanting to, if anything, liberate those beautiful intentions to be truly empowered, because one thing that isn't being called out anywhere, as far as I can see thus far, is the code that governs all of those forms of activism and discourse and communication and attempts to better ourselves and our world. So just wanted to reiterate that.
I think it's a great time to take a break for another musical interlude, but just to sum what up where you beautifully opened up. So what is a source of widespread dysfunctions in every corner of our culture? Our whole culture itself is a virus. This is a virus, right? This code becomes a virus. And we're born into it, we're living it, we're reproducing it, we're presenting it to our children. It's carried on, it's a culturally transmitted virus. And it breaks our being. And the great teachers were trying to create a space in which we could see it, diagnose it in a deeper way, see the ontological disorders and pathologies in a deeper diagnosis, and be caused by the matrix effect, and that we can do something about it.
Yes.
And we've been called to that. And that's what I say. So what happens here is that everything is, the links, the unum here is broken. This is a de-unum, pre-unum, and this is unum. And we can't break the links because we're always linked in. But our technology is delinking us into Legoland. And it's
even as we use the linkability of this, we're using it. We couldn't get 2 + 2 = 4, or I love you,
or even I. You can't even say I.
Or any utterance. Right?
Anything that has unity is going to borrow it from the unum. No unity without unum. No word without unum. No life, no experience, no thoughts without unum. Right? And so if we're de-unumed, then it's a broken disaster. And now you could see widespread pathologies which you couldn't see before. Now you have the unum vision to connect them. That's what we're going to do. Let's take a break.
We want to play you a song that was also from the 60s, and we want you to hear it in the context of what we just shared, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears must one man have before he can hear the people cry? And how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
I love your rendering of that, Dylan. You bring Dylan to life when you take and honor Dylan's lyrics and the Dylan energy and bring it into the context of the source. You could see how it speaks so deeply to what was coming out in the lyrics. I love it. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that.
And the answer is blowing in the wind is the
wind.
It speaks of that infinite field, that source that supports and sources every iota of existence. And so where's the answer? It's blowing in the wind could sound wistful and
and far away.
Far away.
But it's right here because the infinite is right here. This is very important. Mm. We couldn't breathe without it. We couldn't think without it. It's, even though we are somehow cut off by ourselves and eclipsed from it, it's still, the links are here. Mm-hmm. It's always here. And our limited technology, that is a chop. A is A. There's a law to this code. A is A. Every unit, every word picks out a unit, and we don't realize it puts it in a space that's allegedly self-sustaining, rather than A, the same word here, is infinite connection. Every word. Mm-hmm. Imagine what that means. Mm-hmm. This level of English, let's say, mm-hmm. if you could learn Zenglish, Zen, mm-hmm. just to play, mm-hmm. right, where every word, wow, and now, time, space, mm-hmm. the grain of sand, infinity in a grain of sand.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I do to help my clients, for example, get this idea is just this simple. You may have thought of this many times yourself, but if you think about the universe, and you think about, well, how big is the universe? And you try to imagine you just even in your mind to go to the edge of the universe. Well, but if you're going to make an edge of the universe, what you're essentially doing is creating an imaginary boundary. As soon as you create a boundary, if you say the universe is, as we do say, is 14 billion years old, roughly, according to what we can see from time since the Big Bang, that means, and we can see it expanding. So just to say, oh, the universe is this big, so you can zoom out enough. Well, as soon as you give it a boundary, you're implying that there's something bigger than it.
Transboundary.
Right? Yeah. So it's just a simple thing to kind of show, oh, yeah, I'm always trying to wrap my head around it. You may be wrapping your head around it and not even realizing it. Time is another great example, single bracket time, which just like everything else is sort of on a grid, like size, feet, inches, miles, we make everything into a grid. But in time, you got, let's say that's a day, and you've got hours, and then you've got, minutes, and we can break it down. But how long is a moment? Well, you can't say a moment is 2 seconds long and pick an arbitrary. How long is a moment? What is a moment? Could a moment
here, yeah.
be outside of this? When we talk about the power of now, could it be that? Because you can hear now in the single bracket sense, and it's not even something you can wrap your head around. You can't grab it. You can't hold on to it. You can't measure it.
You can't touch it. It's gone before you.
So this code, this consciousness, this mentation, this mind is cutting us off, blocking us from the depth of the now, the depth of space, right? So what we're trying to show and convey is that this is literally, you may not even realize what you're being robbed of right in this very moment by the invisible code, consciousness, matrix. Could be robbing you from your very being. This word is huge. Think of this as the room to be, the room to live.
Out yourself.
Yes, we like to say out yourself.
To human up. It was the name of our show.
Yeah, you know, so outing yourself isn't a matter of your sexual preference alone. It's your being. It's who you are and all of your beautiful uniqueness. Just like they say every snowflake is unique. There's not two snowflakes that are exactly the same. Do you realize how amazing that is? Well, think about that for humans. We're all so unique, but trying to fit ourselves into a cookie cutter kind of code in whatever culture we're in, we're forced to, I like to use the word homogenize ourselves to almost just become the single bracket same. And that's not unum. Unum does not mean we have to get rid of our rich diversity and difference in order to be one. So that's why this code is so powerful, because if we don't have a single bracket and double bracket differentiation, when we say one, it automatically defaults to this. And that's what people are, we don't want one world order, let's say, for example. We're afraid of those ideas because on a deep level we know of who's one? Well, it's sure as hell not going to be your one, my one. And we're fighting over our version, right, of our narrative of reality. So I wanted to just kind of point that out, that what we've grown so used to is not only creating all of those clashes and collisions outside, but it's suffocating who we are. And so I hope that's helpful in terms of...
Very helpful. It's great. I love hearing you. You keep talking. Let me just respond in dialogue to what you're beautifully pointing out, because we indicated before the song break, the musical break, which I think was very moving to hear the Dylan words, 40, 50 years ago, I heard that as an undergraduate student, and it moved me so deeply. And years later, I'm seeing how poignant and appropriate it was.
And it is, yeah.
Because the wind is always here. The wind of the infinite is at hand all the time. It's right here, in us, around us, even as we're cutting, even if we're plagiarizing, you said, right? To be in this matrix, we're putting us first. We're putting my agenda first. We're putting I or we. I have we here. Mm-hmm. The I or the we, the cult, so to speak. The culture could be cultic. Namely, we're following our own lens and our own story. We have a narrative, and my narrative is true, because this is the place of meaning and truth. There's nothing more great than having a meaningful, makes sense. It's rational. Mm-hmm. It captures reality. My story, mm-hmm. right? And we're battling out for stories, which in the public space, which story should preside, or which stories? Mm-hmm. Well, we reached a point from modernism that we hold these truths to be self-evident. There's universal truth here. No, modernism didn't work. Let's go to postmodernism, which means what? Many truths, many stories, make an I statement.
You got your opinion, I got mine.
And this is opinion.
Yeah.
And if that's true and you're cut off from truth, then you're in sophistry. You're in relativism. You're in absolutism. If you absolutize your story here, you're still relative. And each person is relative to your lens. This is huge. Mm. We are interpreters of reality.
So how is that showing up today? And what we're seeing right now, in our culture?
Well, before we go there, I'd like to respond, because once we realize that, wow, my whole world is my lens. I have a lens. I grew up in my culture. I was being lensified, so to speak. In other words, I have a way of interpreting. I have a code. I've breathed in the code. I've appropriated the code in my form. The code inhabited me. And I see from that. So when we realize this line means we all have a code, and it can be widely diverse. I could be a scientist saying Big Bang is true, and it's my Big Bang reality. Look at the facts. I said, no, Genesis. God created the universe. We could have God here and the universe here rather than this. Infinite. God is infinitely global and the source of all. Source of all means all possible stories are being housed and funded and coming from, without the infinite source of them, nothing would be. Mm-hmm. That's source science. That's ontological science. Any download of being is coming from being. And if we can get the code of being, the logos code of being, then we could be. So our being here is caged, colonized, and our being here is free range. That's a land of free, a land of freedom. So here, everyone's story becomes an ideology. I'd like to pick that up in the sequel to this event, to go into the depth of that. Even science has a theoretical framework. If you go from Newton to Einstein, or you change from Ptolemy to Copernicus, and you change your lens, you change your science, and you have a new theoretical space, that's a lens, that's a narrative, that's an ideology, right? So whatever your field, or your art, or your feelings is here, it has a lens, and you're interpreting, and the subject has an object. The O here is an object. This is important. This line is another slasher. Not just this is slashing that, but we're slashed I and not I. And now, Nathan, that's where we begin to see the meltdown. Once I lose the unum power, the link, the real link of myself with myself, I begin to be lodged in an ontological disorder. My being is cut off from myself. I am cut off from my real self, right? In my cultural milieu, right? And they're boundless cultures. The point I'm trying to bring out is change your lens, change your world. How many times can you do that? You do it. Keep going.
Ad infinitum.
Right. Across the planet. How many different worldviews and perspectives? Well, if you own it, this is your subjective world right here. And it's showing up in the public space of language. Your narrative, right? And that captures reality. And there's a battle for reality. What is real? So when you get ideologies, an ideology is a narrative that's a function of your lens, embedded within the colonized space, and it's cut off from the unum truth of reason. That's a disaster.
And if we're all there.
That's right. That's why Socrates drank hemlock, to see that here, it's opinion, it's not knowledge. If you want science and knowledge, you got to go into the logos, right? And to tap the logos, you can't do it in the anti-pre-logos space. As much as important as information is, the lens we're using, which is a download of this technology, we make our worlds with our lens.
That's a pretty big distinction between knowledge and information.
That's
because
right.
people think that information accumulation is increase of knowledge.
But the point is that information is a function of the lens you're using. Your facts, the facts of science, of physics, for example, not the same as the facts for a believing Christian, or a Muslim, or a Jew, or a religious, or a yoga performing person who is practicing yoga here, or Feng Shui, or any of the arts that you use. We always have a lens, and our lens is being downloaded from this level of lens, and then our lens becomes my lens. And how about your lens? The I and the other is alien. And when you begin to see that you're cut off not only from yourself, your autophobia, you are blocked from yourself. There's autophobia. There's great fear of crossing, the phobia of opening.
That's an important key.
You talk about that. Why is it?
Yeah. Well,
the phobia issue.
Well, because it could sound like, oh, it sounds so nice, I want to go there.
This is Nirvana. Why would you want to
Yeah,
go
exactly. But we're talking about the depth of this lens. You say this is not just your lens, it's you.
You are your lens.
Yeah. And this version of ourselves, which it happens at a snail pace in one sense, it's not all of a sudden we got that lens, you're born and you start to learn the language and you get imprinted by your mommy and daddy and your brother and sister and the school and the TV and the phone and Facebook and all these things where you're creating a version of yourself in a single bracket interaction. And so think about your true self is sort of getting programmed in whatever way. What's universal about our programming, east, west, north, and south, is this. That's why it's so profound. But then we get comfortable here, even though it's a coffin, if you will. We die from this.
That's why this is a kind of death.
Yes, exactly. It's
ontological death.
You get me walking around. That's why I actually have a theory that our obsession with the zombie movies is because, in a sense, there's a part of us that knows what we call normal everyday life is kind of zombie-ish. It's such a squelched version of living in life. We're not really living here. We can't really live here because why? Because our very 24/7 consciousness practice, by the time we were, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, into the teens, it happens so gradually, we don't even know what hit us. And we suddenly find ourselves, I just think I heard a statistic you shared, that the teenage suicide rates have shot up, you know? Yeah. And of course, I see everything now these days in this kind of context, so see it as a deepening of this divide, being cut off from joy, from life, from love. Why would we not want that? Well, while we are dying for this, literally dying for life, that we're suffocating for breath, we are also simultaneously very accustomed to this and in a way kind of cozy and familiar, and we don't want to let it go, because it feels like a kind of death.
And it's life-threatening to let go of your story.
Yes.
Which is to let go of this. This is the main point. You can have, you could read spirituality about getting awakened and so forth, and going high from lower to higher, and from not having Christ to having Christ, and you can have all of those changes here. But if it's behind the wall, it's still cut off from the real, the Christ, the life. I'm the life, I'm the truth, I'm the way. The Buddha call, the yoga call, the Om, right? The medical science here, ontological medicine. We need that urgently. That was a missing science because we didn't have the deeper diagnostic here. So back to the point that you're opening up so beautiful. When the self here is isolated, I or we, when we're isolated by our technology and cut off from the unified flow of unum pluribus, you can see and read now the medical disorders. Because my being is going to be I'm contained. How about the nada? I need something to fill my void. I have a void. I need stuff.
Oh yeah.
So now I've got desires. I need that object. But I realize now, you see, that's line is over, because the subject here, the subject who is experiencing has an object, and that's objectification. This matrix brings objectification. The other is other. It's cut off. There's distance between I and other. The I and the not I. I and my experience, my feelings, my content. All the content is objectified. But when you go into the awakened space of connectivity and unum, the I and the other cannot be severed. You can't have this slash between I and other, because the I and the other are unbreachably unum, woven together.
And that's the golden rule.
That's
which every religion and world wisdom has some version of that golden rule.
It's a global ethics, the global ethics, the global law of ethics. This is the land of the law, right? This law is above, right? And no one is above the law, right? You don't vote on this. This votes on you, right? So when we're talking about voting, we're going to pick up this theme, because right now I'm trying to hold back with you so many different things.
Me too.
Are explosive. But I want to focus take a break for a song and come back. And what I'd like to do now is just to take a moment to say, why is racism, sexism, homophobia, ethnic cleansing, narrative supremacy? It doesn't have to be white supremacy. It could be any supremacy, scientific supremacy. The battle for narrative supremacy is a battle for who is real and what is true and what is valuable. Meaning, value, truth, right? Reality is here. So this is the reality show in this TV station. You follow? And that's why when you're cut off from truth, it's a disaster. Because you don't have the logos, you don't have truth, you don't have reason, you don't have common ground. Everything is Legoland. It's fragmented. And that fragmentation is an ontological medical crisis.
So this is of ultimate pragmatic value to see this, because if we can want to have dialogue here, but I call dialogue in the single bracket space is actually dual monologue, meaning we're not actually reaching dialogue. Dialogue is actually dia logos, through the logos, meaning we have to find that what you called common ground a moment ago. You have to have the access code, so to speak, to truly meet the other. To truly have United States of America, to truly have United Nations, to truly have world peace, we have to get
love. I mean, love, intimacy,
and wanting. It's not enough.
That's right.
You can want it all you want. Down
here. Yeah, but your single bracket, the want and desire is here, and not. That's why the great teachings are saying, let go of desire, let go of the ego. But you're not clear. Let go of the matrix.
That's a whole different level.
That's a bigger, deeper, scary deal.
Yeah.
Right, to see, and now we're trying to show we better do that, because check out, with all of our beautiful genius and nobility and great moments of history and beautiful people and great intentions, if you're embedded, the best activism behind this wall is not going to liberate us. So it's medically, for medical literacy, for ontological literacy, for source science, we need source science to break the circuits. Why don't we take a break? and have a...
So this would be our last song of the day.
Yes.
I was imagining ending the show with it.
I think time is running out now.
Oh. So it's not a break, but
No, it's not a conclusion yet, because I like to breathe a moment with our friends.
do this song and we'll
come back and then
we'll
wrap it up. I'd like to talk after we come back about why widely diverse symptoms are still connected with the being cut off.
Okay, got it. And this is one of my original songs from some years ago, and it's called Step Outside.
I love this song because it's Step Outside. This was years ago when I heard this song from you. It's calling us to the sky. This youth is suffering here and is feeling and wants to get out and turns to the sky and says, help me, sky, to understand, what do I do? And the sky speaks to him. So it's the dialogue between the double bracket matrix and the single bracket entrapped person.
Exactly.
Let's hear it.
Yes.
This morning, like you do, my body was aching and I did not want it to. So I pondered it over a bowl cereal, asking why, and I got an answer from the sky. She says, step outside, step outside, step outside. It's a simple little something that you have, just step outside. Step outside, step outside. It's a simple little something that you haven't tried. Well, I step outside, no way, got too many things I gotta do today. I got money on my mind cause there's bills to pay, and hardly ever any extra time to play. So throw me a bone here, sky, come on, pretty please, now tell me, what do you say? Every little thing that I've been trying to be is just a little itty bitty part of me. And everything that I ever wanted I called a dream and pushed it to the side. And for my aching, a simple little something that I haven't tried. And all I gotta do is just a step outside. Step outside. Step outside. It's a simple little something that you have to step outside. Step outside. Step outside. It's a simple little something that you have to step outside. Or would you step outside? Just step outside. It's a simple little something that you have to step outside. Just step outside your mind. Cause I've got reason to believe that I have been deceived by the crazy, crazy maze of all the ways of man. And I've had reason to believe that I just can't receive unless through the crazy, crazy laws of man. I've got reason to conceive of a brand new me, a brand new me. And all I gotta do is just step outside, just step outside, step outside. It's a simple little something that you have to step outside. Step outside. step outside. It's as simple as something that you have. Watch the sunrise in its own time, in its own time. It's the new moon to the full moon in its own time. I free my mind when I step outside.
Wow, very powerful. Step outside. Whew. Well, the time went by rather quickly, and how would you like us to wrap this up? Because we were focusing on how widely diverse pathologies. We haven't gone into depth really.
I see this as a kind of part one of perhaps 2 or even more episodes where we go deeper into just seeing why seeing this is so central to calling out the cause, the deepest root cause of all the breakdowns. If we really, really want to be activists, we want to be activists of consciousness and to see at a deeper level, to activate our God-given or source-given, reality-given, nature-given capacity of true reason, logos, sanity, to be able to denormalize and step back from the housing of the fragmenting code, matrix, whatever you want to call it, that we're so used to. And we're so used to operating in that space. So when we can step back together, we are empowering ourselves now to actually leave this stage of our human development, which has led to all of the violence in all of its many forms in our lives. And so that's why this is so key. So I think we have no choice but to take
May I
another.
just conclude?
Yeah.
Beautifully done. Now, so when we go deeper in the next the sequels, that when you look at the human being here isolated, you'll see all kinds of psychological disorders, chop mind, mental states are broken, cut off from source and being and self. We're deep depression, not only personally but culturally. You can have a cultural depression and disorder when our being is broken into ill-being. And when our being is broken, that's an ultimate disorder. And so my own relationship to myself, my inner dialogue, and if I'm living in multiple worlds in my cultural narratives and multiple narratives and I'm embedded, I'm going to be divided against myself. And if I can't dialogue, I'm going to be a broken person with multiple identities, right? Just my own inner life, seeking meaning and finding the meltdown, a life crisis, because it's going to lead to an ontological crisis of life, of not being able to tap the true me and the true life source and to honor what's first. So the wide range of psychological, ontological, existential, nihilism, right? The question of faith and bad faith, because faith is here. Faith is not just about this, right? And intimacy and love, all of these big words. Ethics, I want to be moral. I want real love. And you can't objectify your lover or yourself. In Legoland, you can't find love, right? You can't find truth. You can't find democracy, true meaning, value. It's all here and not here. So when you look at inside the person, it's going to be fragmentation of widespread personal, interpersonal, the breakdown of dialogue, living a monologue with your kids, with your lover, with your significant other, who becomes insignificant when you objectify him or her, right? By objectifying. We don't realize we're objectifying. What we call objectification is a local form of don't objectify another person. But everything is being objectified.
By default.
By default, by the
Exactly.
matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if racism is going on, why? Because you're objectifying them, right? That other, phobia of the other, xenophobia, fear of the other, fear and phobia of the other, right?
Which is really fear of this.
Right, displaced, projected fear on the scapegoat.
And what's so vital about what you just said to me is just calling the culture depressed. Not as a put down, but again, to denormalize. I see so many people on the news or wherever, trying to go, really wanting to go, what's going on here and trying to fix the problems. But if we're normalizing the big picture of the deep depression that we're in, then we're going to keep on expending and exhausting ourselves in trying to get better here. But there's something about when you just said that this, it's not just the person's depressed, but the culture is depressed. Societal depression.
I could look into religious disorders. If my ideology and I don't have God and I have a download, or I don't have Christ and I have a download on my terms without knowing it, I'm a good person. But if your religion is here, your Allah is here, your Yahweh here, right? Moses' law is here, and all of the religions. If my yoga is here, if my Buddha is here.
If your science is here.
If my science is here. We're going to follow up in the sequel, right? So whether it's personal or interpersonal, just think about it. If we want to deal with racism, and we're trying to solve racism here, why don't we get along? When racism is a symptom of this, right? So it's something deeper than racism. How about sexism, the gender wars, and objectifying one another, right? And we want to have time for the goddess to rise, right? Time for the feminine, right? And we're being a feminist here, but this is the patriarch, so to speak, and the matriarch.
Yes, yes.
And the matriarch.
Yes.
Right? We're colonized by something. We got to blame someone, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's the patriarch. It's a matriarch. It's the other. It's the other culture. It's the other. Democrats appoint Republicans. Republicans appoint Democrats. The other, and they're broken. And this line means I can't talk. Irreconcilable differences. Broken Lego differences are irreconcilable. To reconcile, you've got to go into the love place.
You got to step outside.
Step outside and listen to the sky.
Yes.
The dialogue of the sky.
Which is where we're going to go. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll come back.
All right,
all
right. We
we
don't want to end.
There's so much more we want to share with you, friends. Come back and join us again. Nathan, thank you so much for your music and your voice, because I hear you singing from the zone, from the source. And it's deeply moving, and you honor our artists who are tapping the space. But if we bury it here, we don't hear the full force. So as you said, the medicine is released. And I love the way you uncover the songs, whether your own or the artists that we all revere and love so much. And the same for our founders. Our founders of 7076 were tapping here.
And thank you for unamizing them and all of the great voices of wisdom through the times.
Thank you.
Your musical heroes.
I'm serving with all my heart the wisdom that are coming from the source. I'm a philosopher, lover of Sophia. Logos Sophia is wisdom, and wisdom is the code, the awakened space. And to be a lover, a first philosopher in the first science, right? A lover, Phile Sophia is a lover of Sophia. Right? It's a great profession, right? To honor our great wisdom teachers, men and women of the ages.
Yes.
Right? We're all meant to be that.
Yes. That's it.
So please, join us next time. We're going to go deeper next time into ideology. Are we the land of ideology? And if so, why are we broken and can't find real democracy? For example. So please, thank you, Nathan.
All right. See you next time.